Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets. Got Karl Bryan here and my boy Road Dog.
Hey, Karl.
You there with us, man?
What's happening?
How goes it, brother? Doing well?
Doing well. How's life up in the castle?
It is good. It's up in the castle. It is good. Just finished swimming. I went for a swim this morning, Road Dog. Are you proud of me, bud?
Good for you. Good for you. I always enjoy driving by and seeing the heat evaporate over your pool in the mornings. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a very large hot tub. There you go. Anyways, my man. Okay, let's get this show on the road. I think we had a lot of questions come through this week. Tell you what, man, let me throw it to you, bud. And
all right, let's do this.
Throw me what you got.
Yeah, you bet. We'll shorten this up a bit today too. So the first one is an interesting one because I always love mindset type stuff. So people are asking me when it comes to mindset hacks, if you will. So let me ask you, what is King Karl's number one mindset hack to accelerate success?
Okay, so mine, not necessarily mindset hack, but we're trying to accelerate our ability to succeed. So let's assume make some more money, etc. So here's what I would say. First of all, I think the gap is always, if you introduce me to somebody who's bankrupt and they no longer want to be bankrupt, education is the gap. Also a little bit of time, by the way, but the gap is education, or maybe a better way of describing that is if you show me somebody whose business is not doing well. Okay, let's say that last year their revenues were $200,000 and their goal is to have revenues of $2 million. The gap is always education. So I think that that's absolutely critical. In fact, I'm doing a series of emails right now that are coming out every single day for the simple point that I want to influence people to say, to go out and get educated. So I think that educating yourself and accepting that that's critical is absolutely huge. But, things like, think bigger. Like if you ask yourself a $3 question, you're going to get a $3 answer, right? And $3 is going to maybe get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You got to ask yourself $30,000 questions. Maybe it's a $300,000 question, right? And again, a very simple example of that, if I'm a business coach and you followed my emails, I often talk I put together a $500,000 coaching program, right? The average coach is trying to put together a $500 per month coaching program. In fact, often I'll meet a coach that's doing $150 an hour, right? So if you're asking yourself, well, what do I put in my coaching program for $150 an hour, you're going to get a very, very, very different answer than if you're sitting there trying to knock together your $500,000 coaching program, or more realistically, let's bring it back to how about a $50,000 coaching program? Maybe a $24,000 coaching program, which simply put is just $2,000 a month, with success of getting your client to the 12-month mark, right? So I would say that just asking, thinking bigger. And again, I know it has that kind of platitudinal, gee, that sounds good, but really, let me ask you a question. When we when you stop listening to this, when you pick up the phone, when you speak to your mentor, you speak to your wife, most importantly, you speak to yourself. What are those questions and what are those answers that are kind of running through? And, small incremental improvements. So if you're a $500 coach right now, trying to get to 50,000, 500,000, again, is probably too much of a stretch. Just remember, what's that saying, Road Dog? Small hinges open large doors. Do I got that right? Right? It's absolutely thinking.
Big doors.
What is it?
Small hinges swing big doors.
Yeah. See, this is it. So anyways, small improvements. Okay. So if you're at 200,000 and the goal is to get to 2 million, it's going to be a series of small improvements along the way to get there, which aren't going to feel like massive wins. It's not, if you want to win the Super Bowl, you've got to win a series of games throughout the year in order to get there. Goes without saying, but I think that, and by the way, in order to win the games, you've got to, win a lot of drives. You've got to, put together some game winning type situations. You got to rise above in week 2, 3, 4, 5 throughout the season. So anyways, I feel like, so if you're asking me the number one, the mindset hack to accelerate success, education is, you got to be able to educate yourself. The gap is always going to be that. But, just thinking bigger and asking some big questions of yourself and accepting that over time. It's not about a quick fix. It's not the magic pill. So that's what I'd say, man. And the small hinges open big doors. I think that's absolute magic saying. Absolute magic saying.
Awesome. It's funny when you said that, asking better questions. Just to remind me, I think I texted you on this as well. Like, it's one of the, because we always get asked on pricing and stuff as well, right? Like, how can we justify charging a couple grand a month or whatever? Like, there's a lot of coaches obviously that struggle like themselves with that question. And it's always take a look at the size of the problem that you're solving. And it's just, I don't know, that just sort of came to mind, right? It's like, if you want to charge $10,000, solve $100,000 problem, and you'll never ever have a worry in the world, right? People will pay for that all day long.
Well, okay, so that comes back. In fact, I sent an email or wrote an email. I'm not sure if it was sent, but so I wrote an email that basically talks. So if you're taking on coaching clients, like I meet a lot of coaches, and then they're solving the problems of alternative health practitioners, as an example. It's very common, right? I assume the reason why is because they're like, if you go to a networking function like BNI, I think you're probably going to find at every single one of them, there's that alternative health practitioner. They're there, right? And as a rule, it's kind of that eccentric lady, and God love her, and she's got a huge heart and everything else. But the reality is, not making any damn money, right? So yes, she'll take you on as the coach, but then don't expect it to get past 90 days, and don't get surprised when she cancels because she can't afford it, right? So if you're going to take on that client, you've got to help her build a $5,000 coaching program or above. And without meeting her, I can tell you that the chances of her having it before you show up are ridiculously similar, versus you take on a client with a higher unit of sale. Like, again, let's just say a $20,000 unit of sale. I think I used a roofer in the example. And it's like, so if you had a roofing contractor and he made approximately $8,000 per roof that he, chucked on a house. Well, if you multiply the numbers out, like, he needs to get 3 clients to basically break even on your fees of $24,000 a year, right? If you help him get 6 deals done, he doubles his investment. If you help him get 12 deals done, look at the return on your coaching at 12 grand or at 24 grand. And also remember, certainty and confidence and mojo all come into that sales, that sales presentation or whatnot, and closing the coaching. See, if you're the roofer and I charge 24 grand, let's assume this year you only make $24,000 as a result of my coaching, which would be pretty lame. I haven't done a very good job, nor have you as my client. But at the end of the day, that's what we got. But the systems, the processes, the understanding of business, the education, etc., the roadmap, the marketing plan, the advertising strategy we put together that's now working, like, he has that for a lifetime. He does not, like, at the end of 12 months, you disappear with your coaching and then all of his education stops, right? So if you get an extra 3 deals done this year as a result of your coaching, well, he's going to be able to get an extra, okay, let's assume there's a slight improvement, like he goes from 3 to 4 next year. He's got all of that for a lifetime, right? So again, I just trying to get back in, like, you talk about psychology and whatnot and mindset hacks, like, you have to just have the utmost confidence in your coaching and the value that you're bringing. But, you bring it to him for a lifetime. You don't bring it to him for a short, again, it doesn't disappear with your coaching. I think that's a huge, mindset hack, few adjustment to your psychology from the coaches that I have spoken to, right?
So let me ask you this, Karl. Let me ask you this. So I know that when it comes to the digital marketing side of things that I also run, I always take a look at anybody that I onboard in terms of, can I deliver 3 times as a return? So here's a good question. And should coaches be looking at that? Like, obviously, that lady that you speak of with the alternative medicine, that would obviously not be an ideal candidate. Do you ever take a look at, okay, what is the business here and what can you actually do for them?
I always comes back to result. It's math. Again, you'll see in my emails, I mean, I capitalize the word math for a reason. So no, I'm absolutely so what the approach that I would take is the one that I just said. Like if you're the alternative health practitioner, which by the way, Road Dog, you'd make a great alternative. I can see you doing Reiki starting tomorrow and dyeing your hair purple for sure. But no, so which by the way, for anyone listening, I'm sorry. But anyways, if you have purple hair, I love purple. But anyway, so like one of the things I would do is I would help you build that $5,000 program immediately. Right. And why? Because I'm charging you, again, hypothetically, let's say 24 grand a year. I've got to make sure I can help you get, even at gross, at $5,000, 5 deals done at 5 grand, which equals 25,000, right? My fees are 24, to make sure that you're at a minimum close, coming close to, earning my coaching fees. And to your point, 3 times that, right? I would want you to get, in that instance, 15 of those deals done in order to have success. So no, I'm always looking back at the math because that's what it comes to, right? And their psychology, right? Like they want to earn more money. They want to have a great business. They want to be able to take these vacations, right? It's like, what are the real reasons? Like people take on coaching for a variety of different reasons. Just like they buy, like there's 2 reasons why people buy something, right? So like if you buy toothpaste, it's oral hygiene and cleaning your teeth is the surface reason. But the real reason you do it is for, to not have bad breath and the social anxiety that would come with running around and, melting people's faces with your horrific breath. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 different reasons. Like what's the real reason why they're buying coaching? Like go a little bit further than just the surface, right? And they're very seldom at first glance, like when you go and sit down with somebody, will they give you that real reason, right? Without knowing what you're looking for and knowing the right questions to ask and how to probe, you very seldom get that out early. That's not what people are going to offer up, right? Like with the toothpaste, I'm not going to go and brush my teeth this morning to prevent social anxiety. It's just not what's happening. But if I went out and didn't brush my teeth for 2 days, you'd be damn certain that, I'd be a little bit anxious with my breath without question, which I would never do, by the way.
So let me ask you this. Do you sometimes think that people's expectations, because I do think now, this is total sidetrack, maybe a bit of a rant here. But the thing that I find interesting, so again, coming from financial services there for 16 years. So when you come to coaching, everyone's like, they got at least 2, 3x sort of somebody's return. But yet at the same time, that same entrepreneur, that same business owner is happy taking the money out of their business, not investing it inside of their business, but in somebody else's. And they're thrilled if they get 8% return. Isn't that crazy?
Yes. I understand. That in itself is what you just gave is the greatest argument of all time for hiring a coach. You know what I mean? So the answer is absolutely. But that being said, with a business, it's not normally dollar for dollar. Like we're expecting an 8% return. But when you take on a coach and your revenues were 200 grand and I helped you get them to 500, or they were 500 and I helped you get them to 1 million, expenses, you know what I mean? That's not all jammed. You know what I mean? Like it's there's going to be expenses and there's going to be new staffing and there's going to be some advertising and marketing spend, etc. But I would agree with what you just said. It kind of blows your mind. And, any business out there that doesn't have a little bit of accountability, like as in a mastermind group or a coach kicking them in the pants, is just leaving huge amounts of money on the table.
Okay, so let's roll into the next one then. Okay, so because obviously we're talking about all the great things that we do as coaches. We're doing a great job of stroking our egos here this morning. But so why would you say that coaches struggle? Like there's a lot of coaches, man. Like you and I speak to coaches every single day, and a lot of them struggle to earn a good living. Like why would you say that is?
Again, variety of different answers, or reasons, but like sympathy versus empathy is a place that I would probably start. Like if you meet somebody, well, I could go back to Zig Ziglar from 100 years ago. He used to sell pots and pans, and then he had other people underneath him that sold pots and pans. He said that he knew whether or not they would be successful on whether or not, like the virtue of whether or not they bought the pots and pans themselves. Right? You get it? Like, are they buying into it? So here's the question for the business coach. have you hired yourself a business coach? Like, if you don't have somebody holding you accountable and kicking you in the pants, what's going to happen? This is what I mean by sympathy and empathy. If you haven't bought into it, and then the reason you haven't is, let's assume that you're thinking, well, geez, I can't really afford it right now. And when I can't afford it, that's when I'll do it, right? Which is totally upside down, conversation for another day. But sympathy versus empathy is that if you haven't bought into it, they're going to say to you, I can't afford it. And because you kind of say the same thing to yourself, then you're going to buy into it quicker. Versus if you are the coach who has the coach and has experienced the results, and you too are thinking, geez, can I really afford this? Is this a good idea? And then your results 2, 3, 4, 5, 10x. And you're like, so when somebody says, look, I can't afford it, what you're going to be thinking to yourself is, look, man, you can't afford not to afford it. And this is where you'll grow roots and get a little bit more dogmatic in your sales process, because you won't buy into it, right? So sympathy versus empathy. What I mean by that is, if you are throwing up on a boat, sympathy is me coming beside you and throwing up also, okay? Empathy is that you're throwing up on a boat and I bring you a glass of water, a blanket, a grab all, and I rub your back and hang out with you while you feel like crap, right? So if you are the coach and then somebody says to you, I can't afford it, you can't buy into it. You know what I mean? Like, that's sympathy. So you got to fight that at the highest level. And there's an argument, a la Zig Ziglar, that if you haven't paid for the coaching yourself, that you're not going to be able to convince them, and bring that really dogmatic approach to it. So that is one for sure. Sympathy versus empathy.
Which, by the way,
Why do
folks,
coaches?
Carl, they will never get this sort of advice anywhere else. Like, who else uses throwing up as an example when it comes to coaching? Like, this is next level.
I've done it 2 times in my day. That's it. I don't like boats. But anyway, so sympathy versus empathy, but also consistency. Again, I'll talk to a coach who's not realizing the results that they care for, wished for. And I just simply say, how many leads did you generate yesterday? How many leads did you help the day before? And you know what the answer is, no doubt, instinctively, without me even continuing. The bottom line is just, and it's not 7 apples on Sunday. It's an apple a day keeps the doctor away. So you've got to be consistent. Look again, in their psychology, in their real world, do they really believe that they can actually help, the business owner, right? Like, can they? Do they have the ability to do it? Then if they do, are they willing to do it first? Like, again, like I'm right now, in the process of writing a bunch of emails. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm hired like a team of 16 people. I'm sitting out and punching these things out. In some cases, it's at 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm punching these things out, and it's bloody hard work, right? And then what I have in my own phone, which I think is a great tip personally, but I have notes in my phone. And just as I'm walking along, I see a sign, I have a thought, somebody says something to me that triggers something. I just all of a sudden think of something from last week, last month, last year, 10 years ago. I go to my notes and I just have it called, it's daily is the title at the top of the notes. And then I go and I basically just punch in that thought, right? So then I go to write my next email, and guess where I go? I go to my daily list and I flip through, and then I try and pull something out and I try to attach it to a story, whatever it looks like, but then I crank it out, right? But it's just like, it's bloody hard work, but you have to be willing, where I'm going with that is you have to be willing to help people before they pay you, right? Like, I clearly don't get paid to send out these emails, but indirectly, I end up getting paid ridiculously handsomely because people are forwarding them, people are sharing them, people are, literally copying and, taking my email, forwarding it, copying it to their friend who either wants to be a business coach or is a business coach, and go, you have got to follow this guy, right? I show you my inbox. It happens like ridiculously consistently. But okay, and this isn't me trying to pat myself on the back in any way, shape, or form where it comes, and you'll see this in my email. You don't have a client problem. You don't have a money problem. You have a refusal to help people before they pay you problem. That's the problem, right? So just think of the psychology that went into writing all of these emails long before I thought that I might get paid for all these emails. It was just, no, I want to help. I want to better the business coaching profession. I want to help the individual business coach that's reading it Whether they ever speak to me, ever pay me, ever acknowledge me, whatever, this doesn't matter. What I want to do is elevate their level of consciousness and their level of thinking and their level of professionalism and understanding of helping a business owner. And that's why I'm doing it. So the psychology of it is, how many people have you helped in the last 7 days without them paying you? And if you look at that, your results at the end of the year are, over the last year are probably ridiculously reflective of that. Like the number of people you help for free will tell you how much money you made over the last 365 days. And it's not, because again, it comes back in so many different ways. It's like giving to charity. If you don't give to charity, or your church, without question, every dollar that you give away will come back to you, it tenfold or above. In fact, and if you play the game cash flow, which is if you guys know Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm sure you've heard of the book. You don't know it, fabulous book. He has a board game, and literally on the board game, as part of it, is philanthropy. And basically, when you give $1, basically you get a 10x. I believe it's a 10x return on every dollar that you give. So it's literally built into the board game. So that's what, so why don't coaches make a good living? Look, I think that those would probably lay it out, like again, get a pen, like get your own notes going in your own phone and just, dial in. Like, okay, I'm going to help a restaurant. I'm going to help a realtor. I'm going to help a sports stadium. I'm going to help, whatever the business category is, and just think of literally 100 different ways to go about helping them. I guarantee that magically, if you get that realtor, that niche on the phone, you're going to be so keen to help them for free that without question, the money is ultimately going to flow. So I think that that's the answer. Just, it's a difficult one. It's not black and white. It's gray on steroids. But you've really got to, if you're not making the money that you want, it's because you haven't helped the people for free over the last X period of time. And if you accelerate that, the money will suddenly flow into your bank account. We often talk about doing live events, right? Like when I do a live event, if there's 100 people in the audience, let's say 20 buy from me, there's 80 that don't, but I don't go and try work out the 20. I give everything I've got to every single person in the seat. And some of them, there might be somebody who's 10 years old, who's a son of one of the prospects in the room. I'd give the kid's 10, right? Like he can't afford to pay, right? Well, but you give everything to that individual. Clearly, in that instance, you give even more than you would to the others, if you know what I mean, because level of passion you probably have for a 10-year-old willing to go to a business seminar. But you know what I mean? So you got to give to all of them in order to have that 20%, whatever the percentages, come back and hand you some dough. So I just think that that's the psychology, and I think that a lot of coaches, and they're too shit scared to pick up the phone, because again, it comes back to, make some phone calls. And then what do people say? Oh my God, I got a cold call. Are you kidding me? Just, when you're worried about cold call, again, you're just concentrating on all the wrong things. End of story. So, my man, that's what I would say. And that's what I'd say to that, man. I think that's why they're not earning a good living.
So you want a good tip? And this is what I started doing, actually. You know how on Facebook or whatever, we always, like, you don't need to recreate content. Like, let's just put that one out there to add value to others. Every week, It's amazing to me just how much I go onto Facebook and I see something really cool, and I just, rather than reading it, I don't know if I'm the only one that does this, I'm like, I'm going to save this post for later. Well, the problem is I've got like 1 million of these freaking saved posts. So what I'm doing is I'm getting myself in the habit, once a week on Friday mornings, I'm taking an hour and I'm going back and I'm reviewing all of the things that I saved that week, and I'm putting it in a newsletter, and I'm sending it out to all of my clients and my prospects of all the things that I picked up over the week. So again, that's just taking something and giving it to others that I found interesting, and then adding sort of my spin to it. So
that's what you're doing there, is you're becoming a reporter.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of being, the person creating the news, you're reporting on the news, which is fabulous. And in fact, often is more, it's a very powerful position, because you're going to get credit for all the content on there. If you put, a Gary Vee article and a Tony Robbins this and that, at the end of the day, they go to it, but they're really thinking, Road Dogg's the one who sent the information through. So you're getting all the you're getting all the credibility.
Yeah, and I'm
Credibility
summarizing.
gets
I'm taking
kudos.
it.
Kudos would be the right word.
Yeah, I'm basically just taking it and applying it to whatever, right? So be it business coaching, whatever. So I'm saying, hey, this is what I see out of this. So, anyways, okay. So moving on, because I know we want to keep her a little bit tighter today. We're gonna round up this call with this one great question here, and that is because I love closing questions, buddy. Like sales and closing, I love it. I love picking your brain on this because you are the Jedi in this stuff. Do you have a process to prepare to close a coaching client?
Look, I don't know if I have I don't know that I think that without giving that platitudinal answer, I think that every situation is a little bit unique, and notwithstanding everybody's personality is a little bit different. Like if I'm a very creative individual, and then someone else is highly analytical, I think that their approach, they'd be crazy not to take a slightly, refined approach to what I would give. But the bottom line is you're asking me, so I would say this. First of all, 80% of a sale is optically stimulated. Again, I don't know it doesn't matter how you're wired. I think that is so absolutely critical. So what that means that when it comes time to close a coaching client, are you describing it with your words only? Or do you have something like a PowerPoint slide that you're popping up individual items? Or do you have a closing flyer where you'd have like, say, a white piece of cardboard that would sit over top of it, and then you just pull it down ever so slightly to go over all the different, items that they would then get. Like when I coach you, we're going to do a weekly call. We're going to do quarterly reviews. I'm going to provide you the marketing action plan, or the business action plan, or the coaching action plan that we're going to put together. I'm going to provide a book summary a month that I am going to research, and I'm going to send you, the perfect book summary for you, for you and your business for that 30-day period. And it's going to be like a rock solid killer, best-selling business book, but I'm going to send you an 8-page summary of it so that it's going to take you 20 minutes to read instead of 2 weeks to read, and then never get done, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to get all of that, and it's going to be $2,000 a month. And by the way, you'd actually do your pricing with a 7 on the end, so it'd be $1,997, not $2,000. Always end your pricing in a 7. But anyway, but 80% of a sale is optically stimulated. I find that when we meet coaches, they don't have that in place, and that is a huge mistake. Again, if you bought anything from us, you probably find that you were staring at like you were probably done like it was done virtually, and then you were looking at a PowerPoint slide, and then we were popping up the individual items. So I think that's absolutely critical. At the point of close, are you using visuals? And by the way, throughout the presentation, are you using visuals? Like an example of what I'd be doing is I had, like for my own process, normally if you were buying coaching from me back in the day, you saw me speak in public, like I can pretty much guarantee it. Okay, so in order to get you there, there's a sequence of tools that I had. Like I had a direct mail piece, I had a postcard, I had an email that would go out. I had a landing page that, promoted the marketing boot camp or the business boot camp. Then I had a follow-up email, and then I had another follow-up email, and then I had the closing flyer from the event, which would have fit in there earlier. So you could imagine, just picture I've got 10 documents that I could easily print out, staple together where appropriate, and I could just have them in a folder. So now I'm talking to you as my prospect. So Road Dog, you're a financial planner, and I ask you about your systems and processes. And then you say, well, let's face it, they're probably not that impressive if you're the average financial planner. And then I say, well, let me give you an example. And Road Dog, do you do live events? And you say, yes. And I'm like, okay, well, let me give you an example over the next 12 months as we work together, presumptive close, right? So as we work through over the next 12 months, here's what we can expect to get to and the level of systemization that you could expect with your financial planning services. So I pulled out the manila folder, opened it up because I'm sitting with you face to face. I could easily do this via screen share, by the way. But I was sitting with you face to face, and then I pull out all of these documents, right? Like here's the postcard, here's the direct mail piece that you responded to. If you didn't respond to that, you were going to get an email. And then when you came to the event, here was the workbook that you had already used. At the end of the presentation, here's the yellow card that you filled out, and that's why I'm sitting with you now. If you never filled out that yellow card, I wouldn't be here. And then here's a follow-up, so you get it. So I'm flipping through this, the business owner. So now I'm showing like there's proof of concept. Like I'm telling you that you need to have some systems in place, but very importantly, I'm following, I'm eating my own cooking. So I'm showing you what I've put in place. You're looking at that. And by the way, what I'm doing is future pacing where I'm like, well, Road Dog, as we work together, this is the level of systemization, and this is what you could expect to have for your financial planning presentations and the ones that you do for the general public to educate them on their finances and taxes, et cetera. And I would be amazed if you're not sitting there going, wow. But what's important is I could explain that to you, Road Dog, or I could pull it out and put it in front of you. And the 80% of a sale is optically stimulated, like just the level of power that it has with the demonstration versus just the audio of it, just me speaking, the auditory version just through the stinking roof. So anyway, so I think that this is definitely, I need to have that ready to go, ready to rock before we talk, right? I'd also say, and you guys hear me say this a lot, but you got to respect your audience. You got to respect the individual. So like before we go and sit down, it makes an insane amount of sense for you to go to my LinkedIn profile, to go to my Facebook page, if I've got Instagram, my website, articles that I've written, do a little bit of homework and go, 3 or 4 pages into Google and see if there's more stuff you could find before I sit with you. Things like that could go an enormous, could just provide an unbelievable amount of information that will allow me to get this deal done. And again, let's say that you're a financial planner. Again, I would come up with 25 ways to be able to assist you. So again, and just your buddy Google can help you in so many ways, clever ways to market a financial planning practice, mistakes financial planners make. Like just spend about, 30 minutes on Google and come up with an enormous amount of ways to help a financial planner. And then this is just a great way to respect your audience and respect the person you're about to sit with. But I can tell you this, that as you're sitting with them, your level of confidence is going to be through the bloody roof. Because when you feel like it's an absolute no-brainer that you're going to be able to elevate his business, as if you're not going to have a higher level of certainty, as if you're not going to be able to exude or provide them a higher level of certainty that you're going to be able to help them at the absolute highest of levels, and the $2,000 a month you're going to charge them, say, 24 grand a year, should be a laydown. So I would do that for sure as part of my process. And then again, like if they own a restaurant, like on every tabletop, they should have advertising. If you have a realtor, a Jedi trick for a realtor is if they have a party before, if you're a realtor, you need to throw a party for the buyer and the seller in the same house. Okay. Real estate's all about, getting referrals, right? Because people only buy a house once every 5 years, right? If not less. So basically, you want to have a party before and after, and the referrals go through the absolute roof, right? So I'm just giving you an example. Like if you're helping a lawyer, do you have a will with that? Would be an example, right? You own a sporting shop. Like I owned a sports stadium. I used to have a starter kit where and this is a hockey rink, right? So basically, people start playing hockey is very expensive. So one of the barriers to entry is to have them buy that initial kit because they're like, holy smokes. When the mom sees the word starter kit, believe me, this has got a marketing message, a component to it on steroids. Well, they come in, and once they buy that first kit, for the $500, all of a sudden the kid starts playing hockey. He gets addicted. I know that he's probably going to be around. The lifetime value of a client is through the roof. So I didn't mind breaking even, losing money, making very slim margins on that first purchase, because later on it worked. That you wouldn't have that same one. I mean, you could for soccer for sure, but you don't have as many repeat sales unless you own an indoor sports stadium. Then it's gold. Then like I owned a sports stadium, which we did sports. We did box lacrosse and some indoor soccer and hockey and some roller derby, etc. For the most part, it was basically a hockey rink. But I can tell you that if you own a sports stadium or a business like that, you will make money in events. Okay, like you just go to the local stadium, right, where the New York Giants play, or the Miami Dolphins, or the Los Angeles Kings hockey team, whatever. The facility is like right now. It's during the day. The joint is 100% dead empty, right? Maybe the office is getting used upstairs. That's not, they make their money in events. Okay, so Madonna comes to town, Taylor Swift comes to town, the Beatles get back together, which would be tough because I think a couple of them are dead. But anyway, so whoever comes, right, the Rolling Stones get back together and do a tour. Like, this is how they make their money with events. Well, my sports stadium, we basically had the calendar laid out, and we made all of our money 4 times a year. When I say all of our money, that's a gross exaggeration because we had, weekly. What really happened is the weekly day-to-day activities paid the bills and maybe our salaries are close to. And then the events is when we made all of the money. So large volumes of people for a very short period of time, and we absolutely murdered it through that. If you have a client that is in a similar type of business, knowing that before you sit down with them would go a very, very long way, right? Like a mobile car detailer. If you're a mobile car detailer, as in you're washing cars for a living and doing it on a mobile basis, what you want to do is have like a tent that you put up over top of the car, protect it from the sun and the rain, and hopefully it's not going to rain because that would be a bummer when you're washing it. But at the end of the day, to protect it from the sun and whatnot, you'll get more referrals through that, tent. And by the way, the cooler it looks without being gaudy with the graphics and whatnot, but if you make it look really cool, you'll accelerate your referrals times 10, right? But the average mobile car detailer doesn't go and spend the whopping $250 that it would cost to go and build one of these, get one of these tents built, right? So anyway, so what am I getting at? That those are just a few examples. Like if you're helping some businesses, or if you're going to sit down with one of these businesses, if you've got all this stuff in your back pocket, which by the way, not all of it will work as a home run, right? And that's why you want to put a list of, 25, 50 together versus just a couple and hope that they work. But that's kind of, like I said, and that's not some, scientific step by step, but that's, pretty much the roadmap that I'd be putting together.
Hey, just a quick question for you, because so with the sports stadium stuff and talking of live events, it just sort of popped in my head. Would that be a good one? Like I know, like if you go to like a hockey arena, they've all got boardrooms and stuff. It'd almost be interesting to hit them up. If they're dead anyways, it's their off season. They got nothing going on. I bet you could rent those boardrooms for like next to nothing.
Here's my model. If we were going to do it, well, Road Dog, you and I did an event, right? What did I say to you? We're doing it in Kelowna. I said, first of all, is the Chamber of Commerce available? And it wasn't. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Sometimes you can put food in and sometimes you can't. But at the end of the day, what's the most expensive? So the Chamber wasn't available. Said, what's the most expensive place in town, right? Basically, we're going, there's probably going to be a golf course. In our case, it was the yacht club, right? That's where we did it. And why? Because it just comes with a level of prestige. And by the way, the most expensive place in town, right, the yacht club, versus the least expensive town within reason, like the Holiday Inn, let's call it, it's negligible. Do you know what I mean? You're talking about like a few $100, but the prestige was saying that we're doing it at the yacht club is, what I mean? When I say it's through the roof, I don't know, maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's a lot better than doing it at the Holiday Inn. They immediately associate that with budget. And as the business coach, I know for a fact you don't want to be associated with budget, right? And the yacht club is not budget. So to your point, if there is a local kick-ass venue like that near you, for sure. But two of the factors that you'll have is parking and traffic. That's always a huge, when we're picking the venue, that has to go to the top of the list. And also in time, because if you've got to make sure that you have this parking and traffic need to be looked after, and traffic in particular, like with the times, you got to make sure that you avoid rush hour and that sort of stuff. And if it's near a school, can't be near the times when the kids are getting into school or getting out of school. So yeah, but that would be a great venue, provided the location. I'm just thinking, even in town here, it would be fantastic. You go to any Canadian city, you go to a hockey arena, you go to the States, you go to any football stadium. People are, we're all geeks not all of us, but a lot of us when it comes to sports. And if all of a sudden, it's like maybe you can package in a tour of the dressing room of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Karl Bryan will be in attendance 100% of the time, right? Like, that's it. Correct, buddy. Let's do it. Toronto right? Maple Leaf Gardens.
Plus there's tons of parking, which is just a home run right there for, there's no questions when it comes to parking, when it comes to these stadiums, right? They're always there. So I think, anyways, it just sort of came to me, but there you go. There you go. Awesome.
Not bad. But again, actually, I can't say that without also they probably going to find that a smaller, like we live in a small city, right? So Prospera Place is the most exciting place sports-wise in town. So for sure we could do it there, and there's not going to be any, we could easily navigate the traffic. But in these, like, if there's a town with 100,000 people and then a city with 3 million, as a rule, your event will go better in the 100,000, population city. Just an FYI. This is gray, big time. It's not black and white, but something to think about. So to go do it, downtown where the Lakers play, that's not, there's some other factors at play other than the fact that it's a kick-ass venue.
Beautiful. Hey, now listen, just to close out, one thing that came across the line here was you mentioned the throwing up stuff, which is wonderful, and gravel. Well, Americans don't know what gravel is. It's called Dramamine. Is that right?
Oh, is that right? Okay, there you go.
So just to put it in context for everybody listening, in terms of what Karl was talking about, this isn't some exclusive medicine that he's being prescribed by his personal doctor.
My personal translator. Well done, Road Dog. You always save the day, dude. Always appreciate it. Well done.
Any parting words of wisdom from the top of the mountain?
No. The consistency bit. It's not 7 apples on Sunday. It's a phone call a day. So just, if you want to elevate your coaching business, just answer me this. How many people are you going to help with their business today? Paid or free? A nominal amount, doesn't matter. I just want to know how many people you're going to help today. And unfortunately, you won't necessarily feel it today, tomorrow, and next week. There's normally a bit of a 90-day cycle to this type of stuff. Much like the apple. It's not like you eat an apple and all of a sudden you're, suddenly healthy. But if you eat an apple a day for multiple years, which, by the way, studies now show, by the way, apples aren't that great for you. It's more sugar than anything else, but you get the idea. Let's put broccoli in there. Eat a piece of broccoli every day for lunch. You probably go pretty far. But you know what I mean? You don't feel it for an extended period of time. So that's just, that consistency thing is absolutely critical, my man. So those are going to be the parting words for today. Sound good, bud?
Awesome, buddy. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Got some value out of that today. We look forward to any questions that you have. Get those over to us anytime. And Karl, as always, buddy, amazing stuff. And I'll look forward to next week.
You bet, brother. High five over there, man. Appreciate you, bud. And for those of you listening, if you could do us a big fat favor, if you could head over to iTunes and give us a rating. I'm assuming it's going to be closer to 5 stars than 1 star, but hey, what the hell? Whatever you feel is appropriate is going to be just perfect. And if you could leave us a review, that is also super duper appreciated. And very importantly, if you know of a business coach or somebody who would make a great business coach, pass along this podcast for them to listen to, and we appreciate you. So, Road Dog, appreciate you, bud. Everybody listening, appreciate you guys, and we will be speaking to you on the next podcast. Thanks so much.
Make it a great week, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.